Hey everybody, it's me, Jeff, the SP Spaz, and I'm trying again um, to record this video. Had some technical problems last week when I tried to do a video about mistypes. So I'm going to try to do this again, and I'm going to try to hopefully make it short, um, so that it doesn't flake out on me like last time. But by the way, the first thing I'll say is if anybody has knows a good way to record video on a Chromebook that doesn't require an internet connection while you're recording the video, please let me know. Comment down below or send me a message in over here, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and let me know that. Because right now, currently, what I'm doing is using the actual YouTube recording studio thing to record my videos, and it requires an online connection. And what happened last time was the internet was getting messed up, so it kept on flaking out, and that's why I only got like a little over a minute of my video. So yes, please inform me of a good way to record on Chromebook, and don't just tell me to buy some expensive camera or whatever instead, because it's not really that's not what it's about. Because I'd still have to put that into something anyway. And I don't currently have a good way to do that. But anyway, the topic that I started talking about last week, or actually I did talk about, but most of it was eaten by the void, was quote unquote mistyping. And um, basically, there are different reasons why someone would arrive at the wrong type for themselves. But normally the reason that happens is sort of backwards of why people tend to say that. In type communities, you have this mantra of the Jung theists, the people that worship Carl Jung, and think they have a better interpretation than Isabel Myers or anybody else on what he said. And generally they say, oh, well, the people are mistyped because they're supposed to learn the functions and learn what their dominant function is, and that's how you arrive at your type. And so any kind of online test or even the official MBTI, where anything where you're self-reporting something or answering questions to determine type is completely useless and inaccurate. And this, the method is learn the functions and then you figure it out. As I said in the first video that I recorded, and I think this part actually did get in there, that I very much disagree with that. And yes, there are some online knockoffs of the MBTI that are not great. I talked about human metrics before, and how it's sort of biased towards certain preferences. And there are others that are the same way. The 16 Personalities site gets a lot of heat for whatever reason, but I actually think that one is fairly accurate. My experience is that most people who take that and take the official MBTI usually get either the same result or pretty darn close to it. And so I think what I was trying to say last week is that there are people that sort of form an image of what they want to be, and then they will either answer questions or choose things to try to make themselves that image or that type. But this can happen regardless of how you do that. If someone is determined to have that, then they can do the same thing with functions. They can determine that this dominant function is what they want to identify with, and call themselves that also. So there's, as far as the self-reporting goes, there really is no foolproof way. If somebody wants to fool people or portray themselves as an image or a facade, they're going to do that. And then there are those people that really don't know themselves very well. So it's not even necessarily an intentional thing where, oh, I want to be this. They just don't know themselves well enough. They're just not self-aware enough to be able to answer. I remember I gave the Kersey temperament sorter to a woman who was a former manager at my place of work. And it was funny because I was giving it to her verbally, and as she was giving me the answers, I knew a lot of them were not true about her, but I wasn't going to argue with her and say she was wrong about herself. But just in my observations of her, there were things where I could tell that she was trying to portray herself as something she wasn't, especially with the perceiver judger questions, because I knew from experience how she was. That's the thing, is some people end up with so-called mistypes because they answer questions based on how they are at work or how they are only in certain situations rather than what their general preference is. But in her case, even that, like, I've observed her at work. That was the main place I've observed her. So I know how she is at work. I didn't even have to know what her personal life was like. As it happens, I knew some about her personal life. But even if I didn't, just from what I observed of her at her work, I knew that she was a perceiver and that the questions she was answering with the judge or answers, a lot of which were definitely not true. And it was obvious from the way she behaved. Now, it's not as simple as people sometimes make it as simple as, oh, perceivers are messy and late and judges are neat and on time. Obviously, that's not always the case. Now, in my case, it is. I'm a perceiver that's messy and late all the time, but not all perceivers are. It's not exactly that in terms of how it's determined. But there are definitely some trends and patterns you can observe in people, and it becomes pretty obvious when people's preference is for things to be unscheduled and loose and spontaneous. Most of the time, if you observe that person, even at work, you can see those things coming out. And in this particular woman, I had observed enough that I'm just sitting there like, you're not a J. You want to be a J, but you're not a J. And so yes, it is definitely possible to take type assessments, even official ones like the MBTI or the Kersey sorter, and come up with a type that is not really your core type. But is it really as common as the young theists want you to believe that, oh, all of these tests are garbage and the only way to determine your type is to do this function thing? I don't think so. And I think there is just as much potential, if not more so, for mistypes by doing the function thing, because people don't fully understand it. They misinterpret, they misdefine. There's so many different varied definitions of Jungian functions. And a bunch of people that claim that their view of it is the best, of course, they're superior. And so if you're not following their particular way of doing it, then obviously you've done it wrong. So, yeah, obviously, again, this is something where my sensing preference, may bias me, but I think the best way of determining types is through observation of people and what they really care about, what their core motivations are. But as far as self-reporting, if you are two things: one, self-aware, and B, honest, most type tests that are actually written well, you will come up with either your best fit type or pretty close to it. So if you're aware of your own preferences and you're honest about it, there really isn't that much mistyping. It generally tends to happen either the test is bad or the person is not being honest or just not self-aware. So those are the general reasons why mistypes happen. But, generally, I think, again, this is an area where the Jung theists are misleading people, leading them towards more mistyping by telling them they have to understand all these functions and exactly their interpretation. And that's how to determine best fit type, because there really isn't. And ample evidence in real life of observing people shows this over and over again, that the patterns that you see in people's behavior really sort of transcend some of those attempts to turn people into function stacks and other diagrams and things like that. So anyway, there's a little more about that. It's not exactly what I said last week about it, but unfortunately that was sucked into the void and just wasn't meant to be for, I guess, those thoughts to get out there to the public. So, but thanks for watching. Like and share this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell, because I'm trying to get new content. I'm churning it out fast and furious, at least Monday through Friday, sometimes even other times. And please comment not only what you think of this subject, but also what you'd like me to do videos about, and any other comments or observations or questions you have for me. I appreciate it. And thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.